The Cypher system. In my mind, one of the best role-playing games out there. But that doesn't mean it can't be improved, and I've already created a few videos on some improvements. But they've all been about creating new rules. I want to show you how you can make Cypher simpler and more intuitive with no new rules. Just a change in perspective, and perhaps a shiny new toy. If you're not familiar with the Cypher system, I have a full review of it on this channel, but basically it's a universal role-playing game, which means it can ostensibly be used for any setting. It uses an endurance system and level-based difficulty to complete challenges. One of the best things about the Cypher system is how simple it is. I adore how everything can be broken down into difficulty levels on the narrator side and how easy the endurance system is for players. But we can make it easier. In the groups that I've gamed with, we had about 3 points of contention, of difficulty within this game. The first is with confusing terms. Then we'll probably have to streamline the math. And finally, bonuses and penalties. They gotta make a little bit more sense. If you play with a group that has no trouble with Cypher, or maybe they've just gotten used to how things work, they may not need these changes. But I've found that these simple changes not only help with players new to Cypher, but with the old players as well, the ones used to the quirks of the system. So I'm just gonna ask you to give me a chance and hear me out. A game's vibes, or its game feel, is not inconsequential, primarily because games are there for fun. So, if there's something about it that kind of sticks in your craw, something should be done about it. Like I said before, these changes don't need any new rules, just a change in perspective. But this change is so dramatic that it basically flips the game upside down. Because of this dramatic shift, I'm calling this new version of the rules Cypher version A, or Cypher A. Let's get into it by changing the wording of one crucial term: effort. I've run a good deal of Cypher, Numenera, Godforsaken Fantasy, yeah, I've done that. Numenera, Godforsaken Fantasy, the stars are fire sci-fi, and Claim the Sky superheroes. But no matter how many games I run, there's a player or two who always get the terms edge and effort confused. Sometimes that player is me. These two words are too similar. In Cypher, you may spend endurance to help you accomplish tasks. This endurance expenditure is known as effort. The more effort you spend, the more likely you are to accomplish your task. Edge is a discount to the endurance cost. For example, if you're spending 3 points for effort, edge can reduce that cost by 1. Well, 1 for each point of edge. These two terms are so closely related and similar sounding, it's easy to get confused, and you might start spending points on edge to get a better effort, which is a completely wrong sentence in Cypher, but it sounds right. The change here is simple. Just call one of the two things something different. Effort means to concentrate and spend energy on a task, to focus on what you're doing. But focus is already used to describe a character or special quality. So we're going to move on to edge. Edge has a great sound to it, and it means to have dominance, or to have something beat out another thing that an opponent has, to have an edge over someone. Having more training or more natural talent can give a character edge. But here, you're lowering the cost of your tasks. You're using your energy more efficiently because you're better at using it through training, through natural ability. While edge does describe this in a way, aptitude is much more of a descriptive term, which we can shorten to apt. How apt are you in might tasks? There's a great deal of words out there that could describe effort and edge, so give it a crack. Put what you come up with in the comments. We're not using any new rules here, just changing the name of existing terms, as easy as scratching off the words on a character sheet and adding the new ones. I hope this will make things click in the minds of you and your players when playing. We're just trying to find the best way to lessen confusion and add more enjoyment to your game. And that leads me to the biggest sticking point many people have in Cypher, and it's one of the core mechanics, the level system. Each task and each NPC have a level associated with it, 1 through 10. The higher the level, the more difficult the task is, or how difficult that NPC is to harm. Seems pretty easy and universal. The confusion comes in when a player has to roll a die to overcome that level. You see, in Cypher, they use a 20-sided die, giving you a score between 1 and 20, not 1 and 10. I see what Cypher's trying to do here, using a beloved die that is associated with RPGs. I mean, this has become the symbol of RPGs. If you saw this hanging on a sign, you'd just assume they were playing RPGs inside. Cypher uses a d20 by having the players roll equal to or over 3 times the level of the task. Well, that seems easy at first. If I need to make a level 4 roll, that's a level 12 or better. But what if I want to keep the difficulty hidden? Well, now the player has to roll a die and divide it by 3 and round down to get the level they succeed at. And that's before bonuses and penalties, which can muck this up even more. Now you might say, this is just grade school multiplication and division. What's the problem? Are your players stupid? Look, calm down, friendo. Most RPGs don't use multiplication and division on their main rolling mechanic. They use addition and subtraction, which is far easier and less prone to mistakes. Multiplication and division just hits different and slows things down. Sure, after a while, playing many games, you'll just automatically start thinking in multiples of 3, or you'll just make a handy chart to reference every time you roll. But what if there was a better way? Introducing the Cypher die, or CD20 for short. Look at its beauty, simplicity. Here we have numbers 0 through 6, so when we roll a die, everyone can easily see what the level is. No math needed. I've also added a handy X for a GM intrusion, and a star for a major effect. Minor effects +1, +2 damage also have special symbols as well next to their level. You might have also noticed that some level numbers have a plus or minus sign. This is because in some Cypher settings there are abilities that allow a +1 or -1 to a die roll. A really strange rule for a game trying to hang its hat on levels. I've added the minus sign to show the bottom of a level, and so a -1 will jump it down by 1 level, and the plus sign is the top of the level, so a +1 will jump it up 1 level. Otherwise, this rule has no effect. But really, you can leave the plus or minus out and simply never use a rule that adds a +1 to a d20 roll. We don't need those rules. They don't belong in Cypher. And that's it. A much cleaner system with no rules added. Just a better die. Doesn't that feel better? And speaking of feeling good, let's talk about bonuses and penalties. A bonus in Cypher is called an ease, and they make the difficulty go down by 1 level. And there are different kinds of easements, such as assets, skills. A penalty is called a hindrance. Again, hindrances come from different things, like an inability. When a player receives a hindrance, the difficulty level goes up. Bonuses make number go down. Penalty make number go up. This is the reverse of almost every other game. So why did the designers do this? Are they just trying to be contrary? Well, no. These guys, they're not stupid. If you give players a +1 level to their roll, they'll have to add +3 to their roll for every bonus. And then they have to divide after that. This can get things really complicated really fast with addition and multiplication on top of each other. Subtracting the bonus from the level was the best way to keep things easy, but it came with some vibe trade-offs. The first lack of vibes here is that the player doesn't get to manipulate the thing that they physically control, the die roll. And secondly, they don't get the elation of making a number go up. And if you ever played an endless clicker, or played a crafting game, Number Go Up has big vibes that go along with it. It just feels good in that primal part of our brains. The good news is, now that we have our CD20, all of that complex math nullified, and we can just take what we rolled on our die, add our easements, subtract our hindrances, and we can see the exact level of difficulty we beat. 1, 2, 3, we're done. It streamlines the process and makes bonuses feel how they're supposed to feel. At the end of the day, we really didn't change a single rule, only how we perceived that rule, and yet it makes so much difference. And that's all I have for you today. Is Cypher version A something you'd like to try? Do you already use some of these rules in your Cypher game? I wouldn't be surprised if anybody lets players add a +3 to their die for easements. Seems reasonable. I want to thank my patrons for supporting me. They will be getting a PDF on my Patreon page with all of these rules for reference. If you're interested in a CD20, well, I'd love to make them, but this video really needs to blow up and do well to show me there's even interest in it. So be sure to subscribe, share this with all of your Cypher friends, and there'll be a comment, a pinned comment down below, and thumbs up it. If it gets 300 likes, I'll make them. And then everyone can go roll some dice.